It's time for Conversations with Bob and Sherry. Hello, Sherry.
Hi. Boy, don't we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
We're watching the stock market taking a nosedive, and mainly due to bank stocks because of SVB that collapsed within 48 hours last week. Now Credit Suisse.
And they're calling these the second and third largest bank failures since 2008. Oh, counting the one in 2008. I guess the biggest one in 2008 was
Lehman Brothers, right?
Lehman Brothers.
Right. As we are speak today, right now, I think I looked at earlier, Dow Jones is down to 535 points right now. And it lost 3% yesterday. So I don't think this is going to stop. Mm-hmm. I mean, SVB is a very local issue, it's Silicon Valley Bank. But Credit Suisse, it's a very sound bank. That's going to do a chain reaction worldwide in the Western anyway.
Credit Suisse hasn't collapsed yet, I don't think.
No,
but yeah,
they halted their trading. Let's talk about SVB. Why are they collapsing? Why did they shut down within 48 hours? There's many theories on that. Some people blame on the federal government. Some people blame on the fact that this is a very woke bank. So what is that exactly what that mean? Apparently, a lot of their board members does not have banking experience. They only have one person on there supposedly had banking experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going from an article from the Epoch Times by Daniel Lacalle. He's a Spanish economist living in London. He's an investment manager, professor of global economics. In his piece, he says, as of the end of the year, December 31st, SVB had approximately $209 billion in total assets and about $175 billion in total deposits. So that's very healthy, very strong. SVB is a venture capitalist. They invest in venture capital in the Silicon Valley, tech startup space. So before the Fed started raising rates with low interest rates after the pandemic, you have a lot of business activity. Okay, low interest, business invests, it heats up the economy. So SVB was investing a lot of money in venture capital. They offset that risk by investing in treasury bills and treasuries and fixed market. So basically, fixed interest government-backed securities are some of the safest. So that's how they were protecting themselves. Well, with the Fed cranking up the interest rates, that does two things: dissuades investment for business to invest. So that hurt their investments in the venture capital world. But what does it also do? When you see interest rates rising, then people want to sell their treasury assets because you buy them for a fixed interest rate for a period of time. And if interest rates stay low or go down, they're a good bet. But if interest rates rise, you've locked in an interest rate lower than what you can get by buying other security. So the ones that they held became, they just tanked. Their value tanked. So basically their investments, because of the Fed policy of raising interest rates, their assets in the venture capital space and in the treasury space all lost value tremendously. And interestingly, here's from this economist. SVB was the poster child of banking management by the book. The bank followed a conservative policy of adding the safest assets, long-dated treasury bills, as deposits soared. SVB did exactly what was recommended by those who blamed the 2008-9 financial crisis on deregulation. SVB was a boring and conservative bank that invested the rising deposits in sovereign bonds and mortgage-backed securities and believed that inflation was transitory, as everyone except us, the crazy minority, repeated. So while the government's out there telling everybody it's transitory, don't worry about it, they held on to these safe treasury securities. They did nothing but follow regulation and monetary policy incentives and Keynesian economists' recommendations point by point. SVB was the epitome of mainstream economic thinking, and mainstream killed the tech star. So there's a lot of news going around. Many are now blaming greed, capitalism, lack of regulation. He's saying, but guess what? More regulation would have done nothing. They were following all the best practices, doing the mainstream conservative stuff, and they failed because of government policy, because of Fed policy, and because of the government, the White House rhetoric. You know, trying to shore up the president politically. They're out there telling everybody, oh, it's transitory. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. So there's that. That's what happened. You can't blame SVB.
It seems like every time our President Biden comes out of the podium to say something, it always happens the opposite. While the inflation is transitory, now the inflation's here to stay. And then the other day, he just came on camera for a few minutes and he said, well, don't worry, our banking system is sound. And then Credit Suisse now is in halting. And that's a Swiss investment bank. Right. They have a lot of foreign investments in there. So it's just interesting, too. You know, SVB, I guess, it posted announcements saying they need $2 billion in order to, you know, having to handle the withdrawals. And that's to be buyout at one point. And that's when people went crazy and started withdrawing the money. I think they say like within a couple of days, it was like 40 million or maybe more got withdrew out of the bank.
Right.
And at that point, one of the economists on TV said this is the Federal Reserve's fault because the bank, as you said, practiced a good policy, is sound. The Federal Reserve could have came in and lent the bank some money and then let them handle the withdrawals and still keep the bank solvent rather than shutting it down. So the economist said the Fed could have stepped in and said, we're going to lend you some money until you get back on your feet. So, you know, you're right, 50% in Treasury, that's supposed to be a safe bet. Mm-hmm. But turn out that actually hurt them because they have to sell their bond at a discount in order to hand a depositor. Here's another thing, though. Just hours before the bank collapsed, they're giving their employees all the bonuses. What is that all about?
I don't know. I didn't hear that part. Are they?
Yeah, they were paying bonuses to the employees. And actually, Elizabeth Warren is asking for an investigation on this because apparently the CEO, the CFO, all this, you know, all the people that starts with a C that sold their stock and actually made $84 million before the bank collapsed. Mm-hmm. They receive bonuses. This is an article from The Street. It says, it's posted on March 14th. It says SVB employees receive bonuses on the day the bank failed. And this is widely reported. Of course, this is not just...
Yeah, that's a bad look, huh?
Yeah, so knowing they're failing. So the bonuses range between $4,000 in a relation service advisor to $300,000 for the head of the product digital, according to Glassdoor. The bank was one of the public traded banks and paid its employee very well in 2018 with an average salary of $250,000 and 683 cents. $250,000. I mean, is that what they're paying the bank teller? I know the bank is in Silicon Valley, so everything is expensive over there. But what about the depositors? Now they can withdraw. They're guaranteed up to $250,000. That's just some people's salary.
Yeah.
That's what they need to live on. I mean, we all know how expensive that area is.
Yep.
So
now the Federal Reserve did step in, and they basically have taken over SVB. They've set up a separate facility, taken over responsibility, and they've said that they're going to give everybody their money, and they're going to provide loans, whatever people need to keep it going. So the government is basically, I don't know if I would call it a bailout. A bailout would be giving money to SVB. They've basically set up a separate facility beside it to take over all the obligations of SVB.
So, however, they're only going to give people up to $250,000.
No, they've said they're going to give everybody everything that they lost back, everything.
But not the investors.
Well, I mean, the FDIC normally has a $250,000 cap, but I believe they said they were not going to honor that. They were just going to make sure that everybody's made whole.
That's not what I heard, but if you can have an article, but they're not going to protect the investors. The investors are actually suing right now.
Okay, here's from CNBC article. The Treasury Department designated both SVB and Signature as systemic risks, giving it authority to unwind both institutions in a way that it said fully protects all depositors. The FDIC's deposit insurance fund will be used to cover depositors, many of whom were uninsured due to the $250,000 cap on guaranteed deposits. Along with that move, the Federal Reserve also said it is creating a new bank term funding program aimed at safeguarding institutions affected by the market instability of the SVB's failure.
So this is a federal policy caused the FBB failure. Now they're coming in to save it. Right. Just like we're short of oil. Now Biden is going to let the oil to start drilling oil. Okay,
they do say that however they claim they're doing it, there would be no bailouts and no taxpayer costs. So they're going to, float this like another bank. And but they said shareholders and some unsecured creditors will not be protected and will lose all of theirs. So some. I don't know how they're going to pick and choose.
Do you believe that? I mean, do you believe the taxpayer is not going to carry this burden? That's crazy.
No. No.
I don't believe anything these people say anymore. Your bank is going to be secure. Boom. It's FTX, now it's SVB. And then, by the way, a lot of their top executives, they are donors to the Democratic Party. Not that it matters towards their policy or not, but that was reported this morning. So let's talk about Credit Suisse, because I just thought it's kind of really interesting. The Saudi National Bank decided they're no longer going to lend money to Credit Suisse, and they're going to cap it at 10%. This is what's causing the collapsing this morning. And if you notice, it's right after China brokered a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Now they're resuming their diplomatic relationship. Iran is going to put an embassy in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is going to do the exactly same in Iran. This was only like a week ago, right? Saudi is supposed to be our partner. Now, after they broker a deal, if Saudi agree with China to broker a deal with Iran, what does that mean to Israel? What does that mean to United States? And what does that mean to our oil supply from the Middle East? So it's just interesting to me, the coincidence that the Saudi National Bank said, we're no longer going to lend you money when it capped at 10%. And there's a lot of Western investment in the Swiss Investment Bank.
Oh, sure. Well, they're saying that all of their large investors, their biggest investors said they would not provide more backing. I don't know how many. I don't know who that is besides Saudi Arabia.
They say, 25% are going to stop. And I can, last week, I think we did our show, and then I was talking about how the Saudis is not going to side with United States. And then right after that show, it was a news report saying the China brokered deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And it just really interesting to me that just happened so quickly. So when we're talking about there's a war going on, we're losing the fentanyl war. Now we're losing the diplomatic war. Okay? I believe, so now we're going to see what India does. And once again, I don't think India is going to be siding with United States. There's a lot of oil. China now controlled, let's just say it, China is now controlling the oil in the Middle East. No longer United States. No longer United States. They have Afghanistan. Now they got the Saudis and Iran to resume diplomatic relationship. They are controlling the oil. If our government still not let us drill internally, we are going to be in such a crisis.
I just looked at Credit Suisse's website, and there's a piece on here. I don't know what it's dated, but they list their most significant shareholders. Saudi Bank is the largest at 9.88%. Qatar Holdings is a little over 5%. Oleon Group is just under 5%. And BlackRock is just over 4%.
And BlackRock is heavily invested with China.
Okay.
And it just, what if the Chinese bank, Asian bank, stop lending to United States? Then what's going to happen to our banking system? So this is a foresight. This is a preview what happens in banking if your lender stop lending it to you. Look at what happened to Credit Suisse. So now we're going to see how this modern banking is going to work out, because we no longer have reserves. Like the gold standard has been gone. Now we go, people are crazy over Bitcoin, basically money born out of the air.
Yeah, I mean, this is terrible. We're in a bad situation here economically.
We're losing the financial war. We're losing the diplomatic war. We're losing the fentanyl war. I mean, like we were talking about last week, we're in a war right now. It's just very different type of war.
So now what's happening? Oil prices were starting to rise with China's opening back up, increasing demand. But now with these financial sector crises happening, oil prices are dropping. So that's going to hurt the oil industry. I mean, all of this really started with COVID. So, inflation, everything. When you shut down the world economy, you lost supply. You killed supply. Then when you turn it back on, demand comes back. There's, supply can't catch up right away. And in fact, a lot of the countries providing supply, like China, stayed locked down for an extended period beyond when, like, the U.S. opened up. So
I blame a lot of these to the policies of Joe Biden.
Well, I mean, the inflation started due to the pandemic, supply and demand. And, so the question is...
Hold on. I disagree with that. The inflation started when Joe Biden, with a stroke of pen, and saying that we are going to shut down the Keystone Pipeline project. And
that raised oil prices, for sure.
Raise oil prices, you raise the prices of goods, right? Because that's a part of the cost of transportation of the goods. And the other thing is, he was throwing money in the market for no reason.
Wow. He had a reason. It wasn't a sound economic reason, but he had a reason.
It wasn't a sound economic reason.
Here's where we're at, and I think everybody needs to see this, that, we are at a point now where the country is so politicized, the parties are always campaigning, that all that the Biden administration has been doing, and the Democrats themselves, all their policy decisions are what's best for the party, what's best for their politics, not what's good for the country. So, increasing government spending, trying to stimulate the economy at a time when the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates for the direct reason of slowing down the economy to fight inflation. The federal government was fighting the Fed. And why were they doing it? To help Biden. I mean, Biden's poll numbers were way down. They're trying. And even now, what is Biden doing? Biden's adopting all of Trump policies that he shut down 3 years ago. The immigration, they're not allowing people, they're immediately disqualifying people from asylum if they come here through other countries. That was a Trump policy. He was criticized heavily for that, called racist and xenophobe. And, the rationale being, if you leave your Central American country, Guatemala, because the conditions are bad or unsafe, you go to Mexico, Why do you go all the way? If you're coming to the U.S. to claim asylum, why did you travel those thousands of miles through Mexico? You were out of Guatemala in Mexico. If you needed asylum, you had it in Mexico. So they're saying that ruins the rationale that disqualifies them from asylum. Well, now Biden has adopted that policy.
Well, Biden is slowly going back to the Trump policy, but the damage is done. I mean,
he just opened up drilling in Alaska, the Willow drilling on federal land, and the environmentalists are up in arms. Why? Because he recognizes that his policies are creating serious damage, and there's an election coming. He's now in election mode he did all the policies to this point were to prop up his presidency, and now the damage that he's caused is threatening his reelection. So now he's changing and he's adopting all the Trump policies.
And the problem is American people have a short-term memory and they don't do good. They have a short-term memory. They do not do deep dives in analysis. So when it comes to reelection time, they can say, look, I saved the economy, where he's killed the economy. If we go back to when he got first elected, if he would have just kept everything the way it is, kept the oil policy the way it is, slowly bringing back the manufacturer, or China shut down, but they were moving manufacture to Vietnam and surrounding Southeast Asian country. And all they have to do is start buying from Vietnam. It doesn't take much. The infrastructure is there. And so has Mexico. But we have the infrastructure. And at the time, Trump had Mexico just at the right place. Now you have the Mexican government are bold enough to mock United States when the new budget, I believe this is $1 trillion budget or $6 billion budget from Biden. Out of that budget, he wants to give $158 million to the Mexican police and military. Okay? After 4 of our Americans were kidnapped and killed. I mean, 2 were killed, but the other 2 are tortured. What's the difference? They're 30-minute across the border into Mexico, and they were racially targeted. I'm just going to say that. They were racially targeted. And with all these Americans got killed, did Biden come out and say anything? Did the Black Congressional Caucus come out? Did Black Lives Matter come out? Did Kamala Harris come out?
Someone came out. Do you know who came out?
All the white politicians, all the
House Republicans.
Yeah, all the white men, House Republicans.
Do you know what House Republicans said?
They want military. They
threatened military action.
Exactly.
So what happened? The Democrats throw up their, oh, no, here they go. They're crazy. They're racist. The Mexican president made a statement telling Mexican Americans not to vote for Republicans for their harsh language, their dangerous rhetoric. And what happened, though? The cartel apologized to the American people, and they took the people who committed these crimes, killed and tortured these folks, these American citizens, they turned them over to the Mexican authorities. Let me ask you a question. Is there ever been a time in history when the cartels have apologized to anyone for anything?
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know that there has. That's just like mind-blowing. This should be all over the news that it was the Republicans' tough language threatening military action where their own president in Mexico went against it. And the cartel said, hey, wait a minute. We're sorry. This never should have happened. These guys acted on their own. You can have them. Take them. They're bad. Leave us alone. That's what the cartel said. They apologized for this.
Imagine if this was happening during the Trump years. Imagine first of all, it would never happen.
It's good news that they apologized. Okay, it worked, but it shouldn't be very surprising because the reason, the cartel isn't violent and killing people just for the sake of being violent and killing people. They're doing it to make money. It's their business. So when their business is threatened by the American military, hey, we're sorry. It's not that hard to figure out.
But the government in Mexico is completely controlled by the cartel. When they
absolutely, they're corrupted. It's everywhere. Sure,
it's everywhere. When they first voted this Mexican president in, they thought this one would be different. With Trump, he was different.
Yep.
Because we stopped the border crossing. The cartel was suffering with their human trafficking business, suffering with their drug trafficking business. Now they're up to $2 billion. These people are making tons of money.
They do the horrible killings and beheadings and things that they do to scare people. They're trying to hold on to power. They're trying to keep rival cartels out of their territory. They're trying to keep the regular people afraid of them and quiet. And they have they've corrupted officials in the government. So all the violence, everything that they do is all about making money. Nobody crosses the cartel. You end up with your head cut off and your family gets killed. Okay. Right. But they don't want to mess with the U.S. military. That's bad for business. It's bad for their money. So they're going to say, hey, we're sorry. This never should have happened. It wasn't us. We didn't condone it. Take these folks. And, so the American people should recognize that. Say, okay, this is how we protect our people.
The American people are not going to recognize it because it's not in the media.
Right. And why not?
And why not? Because Republican came out. I was talking to this lady. Hopefully she'll come on our show in a couple of weeks. And, what I don't understand is these people were racially targeted in Mexico. Why isn't there's a protest at the border?
They claim that they thought they were Haitian smugglers. So, they were racially profiled, right?
Because if these 4 people are white, they wouldn't be targeted.
If that had happened at just, less than a mile on the other side of the border, it would have been a racial incident. But because it happened in Mexico, nobody cares about it.
Nobody cares.
No, why? Because it feeds into the Republican narrative that, the open borders are a problem. They're a safety problem. And, here's the problem. The American people on the left who are politically engaged, and that includes 90% of the media, the media that controls 90+% of the narrative in the country, they're religious. They're literally religious about their ideology. They're religious about their science. They don't care about what's true. They're fighting, like the Republicans are the enemy. Republicans are like the devil. And, they're just following whatever orthodoxy within their ideology and their science or what. They corrupt everything. They distort everything.
Well, give you a perfect example. Just yesterday, Russia has shut down a $32 million military drone into the Black Sea. Right. What did our spokespeople say? It was unprofessional and environmentally unsound or something like that. The Russians shut down our Air Force drone in the open sea, international open sea, and all we can come up with is unprofessional and environmentally unsound. Are you kidding me?
Yep. No, Russia obviously is denying it, and but I saw a story today that the UK and one other country, they're flying flight ops, patrolling, the Russian Air Force, the Russian fighter planes. So
they didn't shut those people down, right?
No.
Imagine if Russia would shut down Chinese drone. You think the Chinese spokespeople are going to be like, "Oh, the environment."
It's literally insane. I mean, it's so frustrating. We have a government and a media. They're basically together. We now have a state media, and the people don't know what's going on. I mean, they're not doing what's best for the American people. They're causing a lot of economic damage. They're causing, national security damage. They're just harming this country so badly, and the people are totally unaware of it.
They're unaware because just recently there was a wire transfer came in from China, communism China, to this group. I believe it's called Wagner or Walker Group, and was $5 million. And immediately those money got distributed to 3 Bidens. Now, the media has now revealed the third Biden's name. I'm wondering if it's so sensitive they cannot reveal it because they found the third Biden. Interestingly, they say it's Hunter, it's James, but we discover a third Biden. But no one's naming this third Biden. So I'm wondering who is this third Biden. It has to be so classified that we can't not know. We can only guess. So going back to 2020, 2019, when I was talking to my Democrat friends, I try to say he is so compromised because it's an open secret in China the kind of money he made over there, and no one wants to listen. You know, every single Joe Biden's policy benefits China and Russia in disregarding what those policy could do to our national security and what those policy will do to our standing in the world. You know, you want to talk, back when Trump was in office, some people say he was a laughingstock. When he goes to the summits, world leaders were laughing at him. They were laughing at him because they were scared of him. Now
absolutely.
Now we're truly the laughingstock of the world. When the Mexican government refused to sanction Russia, think about that.
Yep.
We asked Mexico to sanction Russia. Mexican president said, I'm not going to sanction Russia. I don't want to get involved with the war. Meanwhile, we're paying them. We're giving money to the Mexicans. And they said, nope, we're not going to sanction. Now, this was Trump. What did Trump do when Trump needed the border to be secured? Either you're going to help me or you're not going to get a dime from me.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I mean, you know, he protected our interests. He said, hey, you know, I mean, this is what we care about, and we're not gonna bend over. He even, you know, challenged funding of NATO, you know, which blew everyone's mind. But his point was everybody's taking advantage of us.
Right.
So NATO didn't go away. We didn't leave NATO, but everybody else increased, you know, their support, their financial support.
Doing that, though. Now that Trump is not in office, they're no longer doing
it.
And
we're like a doormat.
Right. Here's another thing. It just like I used to tell my friends. No one's asking you to be friends with Trump. He is an asshole. He's a bully. But this is what we need for our country to guard our interests. If he's an asshole and a bully, he's our asshole and a bully. Because look who we're dealing with. We're dealing with Ayatollahs. We're dealing with President Xi. We're dealing with North Korea. We're dealing with Putin. So now we got Biden. Nicest guy. Doesn't even say a bad word, right?
You know,
worries about everyone's feelings. Look.
I just wish if there was some way that, you know, the people who support these Democrats, who hate right-wingers, hate, you know, Republicans, could just see what's really going on. I mean, Biden is still out there using the term MAGA Republicans. So what is that supposed to do? That's supposed to say, forget everything I'm doing, forget all the harm that I'm doing, just we got these people over there. They're really bad. So you need to focus on those bad people over there. That's what they're doing. I mean, it's so obvious and ridiculous that it's embarrassing to me that so many people fall for it.
Well, I want to do a scenario. So let's just say you have a right-wing mega Republican gun towing, have ton of ammo in his house, and then live next door to a progressive liberal who just loves everybody, and I call the fake kindness. And if this progressive liberal's house gets robbed, who do you think is going to come out and protect the liberal?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to call somebody with a gun. That there is no other person you're going to call if you're in trouble and your house is robbed. You're going to call somebody with a gun. Now, whether that's the police or whether that's your neighbor, you're going to call somebody who can help you, who can protect you. Police
is not going to get it because what is the solution to a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we doing? So the crazy, that's why I always joke about. I say, well, at least if I'm in trouble, I know a lot of friends that can protect me. Oh man, this is laughable and sad because I think this is just the beginning of the collapsing of our economy, unfortunately. I don't think it's going to get any better. The Feds are not going to able to print money fast enough. We don't have a good foundation in this country.
Printing money is part of the problem. I mean, that's what's driving inflation too.
And we don't have a manufacturer-based economy anymore, and our labor force morale is low. So, I mean, but the good thing is, I think it's not a bad thing for this country to go through a little bit of suffrage. I think the whole problem about this country is the fact that it's been doing too well and people are too comfortable. It's really frustrating because we lost all common sense, right? Mm-hmm. And talk about losing all common sense. I know you said, do we really want to talk about this? Just recently, I think 17 states passed a law. They're saying that biological male cannot participate in female sports. However, there's one state now is allowing biological male to participate in weightlifting. Out of anything, weightlifting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you might as well just say, you know what? Why don't you guys just go compete? You know, you're going to have the transgender women compete, and then you got to have the boys sports. Just take the girls out of it completely.
Right.
What's the point? I mean,
there was I think it's Vermont, private religious school in Vermont has been banned from all state-run activities and athletics with other schools because and the Vermont Principals Association issued a letter to Mid-Vermont Christian School announcing the decision because the school said that their girls' basketball team is not going to play against an opponent with a transgender student athlete. So they're saying our girls are not going to be playing against a team that has a boy on it, a biological, stronger boy. And so they've been kicked out of all activities with other schools, all athletics and sports.
Well, I have to tell you, my son played in the basketball team a year ago. So he goes to the Catholic school, and all the kids on his team are built relatively small. And I believe sometimes in Catholic school, you will have kids that's a little bit older than the others, okay? Mm-hmm. And this is in the boys' basketball team. When we play at another school, there's 3-4 boys. They look like they're 16 years old.
Yeah.
Okay? They have muscle tone, I don't believe. And that's already unfair. So when you put in someone that's taller, bigger, stronger, faster, and a girl team. Now, when it comes to like swimming, weightlifting, that type of thing, at least you're by yourself. But when it comes to team sport, I would be afraid if I have a girl playing a team and the opposite team have a biological male, a transgender female, I would be afraid my girl will get hurt physically. Mm-hmm. Whether it's in soccer, whether it's in basketball, I would be so afraid they get hurt. Because these are very competitive sport, very physical. There's a lot of physical touching. I say this over and over and over again, and I just did the talk for Moms for Liberty in Washington County. Why is it the feminists and the people I don't believe the only people with girls in their house in America are Republicans. I believe they're progressive liberal, they're Democrats, have daughters, okay? And I don't understand how are they not worried about this. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless the only people with girls that plays in the sports team or they're playing some type of sport that decide to, shoot for scholarship training, unless all those households in America are conservative Republicans. And I just don't understand how that's not happening, how that's not a bigger uproar.
I agree. I mean, here's a prime example. This happened in 2014. Okay, this Fallon Fox is a transgender, so biological man, mm-hmm. trans to a woman, MMA fighter. And fighting another woman, she broke the other woman's orbital bone. So their eye socket, their skull, mm-hmm. With a punch. Okay, so this has made the rounds, right? People say, oh, this is terrible. Look what happened. PolitiFact fact-checked it. And the title of it says that the social media posts mislead about the MMA fighters' injuries. Okay, if your time is short, here's a summary of the fact check. They acknowledge that Fallon Fox fractured an opponent's orbital bone. Okay. And in the past, Fox characterized the injury to her opponent as a skull fracture. Okay. That's a fact that they acknowledge. But the thrust of their fact check is the photo that was used in these social media posts was from a different fight that didn't involve Fox. It took place years ago. So they get a picture of a woman with blood on her face and things, and they're saying the picture wasn't real. The story's real. What happened is real, but the picture is. So here's the last bullet in the summary. MMA is a combat sport and has an overall high rate of injury. That's their answer. So they basically acknowledged the issue. They said that they discredit people spreading the issue by saying they used a fake photo. And then they say, but you know what? People get hurt in MMA.
Well, I can tell you, my son is 12 and 180 pounds. He's not sporty at all. He's not a weightlifter. He's not a sport person by any stretch of imagination, okay? He barely punched me as a joke, and it hurt. Right. Barely used his full strength. So I can't even imagine what that's like. That's the reason all common sense throw out the window. So what if somebody just go like, well, you know what? If a boy cannot compete in the boy sports, and he can easily just say, I'm going to be transgender. I'm going to put a dress on. I'm going to dress like a girl. You can't say anything about me. I'm going to sign up for female sport. They're going to win. Right. And they're going to take away the scholarship. They are going to take away so much. Interestingly, if it's such a fair thing in the sports world, why don't you see any transgender men playing in the men's sports? I don't see no girls that transgender to a guy say, you know what, I'm going to go weightlift with the guys. I'm going to go MMA fighting with the guys. If female hormones turn a biological male in every way into a female, in every way, then male hormones should take a biological female and turn them into a male in every single way. So there should be women in men's sports. But there aren't. There aren't. All through my whole lifetime, men would fight. And whether right or wrong, it would fight. Men do not hurt women. Men do not hit women. If a woman comes up and slaps you in the face, you're a man. You can take it. You don't worry about it. Okay? You don't punch a woman in the face for slapping you. That just never has been an acceptable practice. The other thing that has always been an issue is performance-enhancing drugs, steroids. Steroids are, for men, testosterone. So by manipulating testosterone, a man gets an unfair advantage in sports. They say that's illegal. We're not going to let that happen. Okay? But now you're going to let a man compete in women's sports who's taking female hormones, which, so if I've got a competition coming up, maybe I back off. Even if, first of all, the estrogen does not turn them into a woman. But let's say it does weaken them to some point. Who's to say they don't just back off of it a little bit when they go in to compete? So you've basically brought back steroids to the sport. I mean, so why all this historical right, wrong, science, everything is just forgotten now. It's totally gone, and we're going to claim that in every way, if you take a man and you change him medically, hormonally, he is exactly a woman. That's not even true. It's ridiculous. It's not true. And this whole boys can now physically be a girl thing is slowly going away. Oh, it is. It's slowly going away. I mean, we're still trying to teach my child that, and I hope everybody teaches their kids that, and but yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that went away because this whole women asking for equality thing, well, if it's equal, then if you slap a guy, they can slap you back, right? That will be equal. Yeah. That will be a true equality. But then you can't say, well, I want equality here, but I don't want equality there.
There's a story out of Houston. A Vietnamese woman went to a machine, I guess an ATM, and withdrew $4,000. She was saving the money to travel to Vietnam. So this skinny young man, this little skinny guy, if you look at the videos, he's not a big dude at all, followed her and wanted to steal her money. He takes this woman, picks her up, flips her in the air. She may never walk again.
Yep. She's a single mother with 3 kids.
Single mother, 3 kids. She's in a hospital bed, I guess it's paraplegic. Neither of her legs work. She may never walk again because this pretty small guy, little skinny guy, picked her up and threw her on the ground.
Yep.
That's okay. If the guy said, hey, I felt like a woman that day, I decided to, then, well, you shouldn't have taken her money, but okay, that we get it. You're a woman. You didn't manhandle her. You woman handled her.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's really sad. The fact that our society had lost all common sense. It's just like when I did the talk with Moms for Liberty, and I went back and thought about a lot of historical fact during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. And during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, that's exactly what happened is when Mao decided that he wants to hold on to power. And he does not want the country to be taken over by Liu Shaoqi. And because the other side says, well, the Great Leap Forward didn't work because we just lost 20 million people in the Great Famine. We need to embrace capitalism, manufacture. Maybe it's time for you to go. And Mao, in order to hold on to power, what he did is he recruited kids from 5th grade to high school. Basically told them, you don't need to listen to your parents. You don't listen to your teacher. You only need to listen to me. Here's a little red book. And he started this whole Little Red Guard movement.
Does that sound familiar, by the way?
Exactly.
That's exactly what kids are being told in school now. Don't tell your parents.
Don't tell. So what happens is he was separating from parents and teachers from common sense. Right. Common sense. Anything old is bad. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything old, even though with the Confucianism, even though when it's teaching you good things, anything old is bad, right? Because the temple gets destroyed. Everything gets destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. What happened?
And guess what? Younger people are easier to control and manipulate too.
Exactly, because if you go to if you go to a teenager and they coming home every day, the parents and the teacher say, you need to study better. We can't accept this grade. You need to do better. And then some other person say, you know what? You're the future of our country. You do not need to listen to your parents. You have to listen to, the government is here to protect you. Right. Be whoever you want to be. Right? So
it's a different form of grooming. Think about it. That's what a groomer, a pedophile would do is, you're an adult. Treat the man grooming a little girl, he treats her like an adult, makes her feel big and proud. And
so what happened is when the 1960s, in the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, he used these kids, all the Little Red Guards. Instead of going to school, now they're beating up their parents or beating up their teachers, and they went on the street, they protest, they scream and yell, Chairman Mao, all change your uniform. When that movement was over, what Mao did is he said, okay, it's time for you guys to be re-educated. Okay? So he takes these kids, groups of them, they're willingly, voluntarily go into the countryside to be re-educated. And what happened during the re-education of these teenager young kids? Girls were raped. A lot of them commit suicide. A lot of guys committed suicide because they were taken away from their parents. And why do they need to get re-educated? Because they're privileged. They live in the city. They need to learn what happens, the hard work in the countryside. So let me get you away from the parents. And what happens when you take a bunch of teenagers, take them away from parents, put them in an environment that are completely strange, right? And with grown men and grown women, and some of the grown men probably have never seen a pretty girl from the city. And guess what happened? A lot of stuff happened.
Yeah.
So during the Cultural Revolution, China lost about another 40 million people. So So now, if you look at the format now, be whoever you want to be. So at the, I want to read you this book. This is a book in Peters Township Library. Okay, can you see that?
Yep, it feels good to be yourself. Yep.
So this book is in the kindergarten to 3rd grade reading section.
Right.
This is the first one. This is for kindergarten and 3rd grade. Okay?
Okay.
You can read that, right? Frame this.
This means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew older. Now, okay, yeah, thought she was a boy. Now she's a girl.
She's a girl. Okay, then, so we're going to go, let's just say, okay, maybe she was born in the wrong body. And then, this is another page. This thing, I think it's worth to look at these.
When you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. They looked at you and made a guess. They got it right. Maybe they got it right. Maybe they got it wrong.
Okay.
That's, and what happens when you teach children that? You think you're helping them?
Out of them. It confused the heck out of them. And here's a really good one. This one is really amazing. Guess what? You can be both a boy and a girl. And the next page, it said, you are non-binary. Okay?
Ah.
All right. So this is a part of, same thing, during the Cultural Revolution, the re-education part. Be who you want to be. We're teaching kids now at school, we're teaching more about activism than actual academic. Right? We're teaching things. That's exactly what happened during the Cultural Revolution. Right. They're asking those kids to be activists, the little red guard, to get rid of the old, coming with the new. So what's old? Even the, academic is old. You don't need to be studying. You just have to be protecting the Mao's interest. Now, and the re-education part of the Chinese, they took the kids away from the parents and sent them to the countryside. Guess what our re-education is? Electronic devices.
Ah,
you can, right? I thought about this. The kids does not have to be away from their house to be re-educated now. They get on YouTube, they get on TikTok. They're willingly to be re-educated. Wow. And while your kid's getting re-educated, your parents are there. You don't even know what your kid's getting re-educated until they start talking to you.
That's why there's a big contagion for this transgender stuff. They say it's because of social media influencers.
Yes.
They don't call them influencers for nothing.
It's a part of the re-education process.
Right.
So, and I was talking about this, and this is all leading to the fact that we have this layers of woke generation, all common sense got thrown out the window, which drives our politician, in order to get vote, are making these decisions as bad for the country.
Right.
And people are ignoring, again, it's a feeling-based politics, feeling-based education, feeling-based society versus merit-based, policy-based, result-based.
Proponents of critical theory, critical race theory, say that you're just looking at history and you're looking critically at what happened and you're seeing all these problems. So what if you did that with this gender ideology? I mean, there's a guy named John William Money, was a New Zealand sexologist, psychologist, and he was the person who introduced the terms gender role, sexual orientation, and popularized the terms gender identity. I mean, he was, this reputable scientist. He established a clinic at Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic. Mm-hmm. This is the guy that kicked all this stuff off. Okay. Now, you read this Wikipedia page and you say, okay, this is a scientist, right? This guy, this all sounds reputable. But if you scroll down to the controversies, I remember as a kid hearing about this theory that girls and boys are identical when they're born. This is how it was taught to us. They were identical when it was born, and it's only society that turns them into girls and boys. Otherwise, they would be the same. So, and then for kids in grade school, they said, boys play with boy toys, girls play with girl toys. But if you gave a boy girl toys, he might not turn out to be a boy the way, whatever. So they told us there were these twins born, and there was an accident in circumcision, and the one boy was castrated. So this doctor who came up with this theory and popularized said, no problem. We're just going to raise this boy as a girl. They literally did transgender surgery on him. They transed him to it. The parents agreed to this. Transed him to a girl. They said, look, just tell him he's a girl, raise him as a girl, do everything like that. He'll be fine. He'll just be a girl. I mean, and that's how you address it. Well, if you read the controversy, none of it worked out. The kid never felt like a girl. I mean, he always felt like a boy. This guy sexually abused these children. They said when they were alone with him, he was mean. He forced them to simulate sexual positions on top of one another. These are little kids. I mean, the guy was a sick person. There's no science. You can't trust anything that comes from somebody like this. I mean, both of the kids ended up dead. One of them died, I think, of a overdose. The one who killed himself.
So this is part of the transgender history.
This is the history.
Talking about.
And they say this guy to this day. Well, he died in 2006, but he maintained that his experiment was a success. He always claimed that it worked out fine. And get this, when people questioned him and said, well, we heard this happen. You know what he said? Those are right-wing attacks. Those are right-wing bigots who are attacking me. And this was back in the, late 20th century. This is the poster child. This is where this whole idea, this whole science came from. This pseudoscience. It's not science.
You should post that Wikipedia page to our Facebook page.
I will.
I think that's important for people to know.
I mean, if you read the beginning of it, it sounds like you're dealing. Oh, this is a believable, credible guy. But then you go to the controversy part of it. It's awful, absolutely awful. And the people that follow him are the same people that will say we need to throw away the United States Constitution because the guys that wrote it on slaves. So everything they said is bad and wrong because they did a bad thing. But yet they're going to take this clown and build the entire life and raise our children in this, distorted pseudoscientific belief system.
Right. Hey, a little bit of local politics. I don't know if you heard about this. I texted this to you. This is what's on Post-Gazette. John Weinstein is removed from a key Allegheny County board after FBI started looking at him.
Yeah.
He's running for county executive.
Yeah.
So all that means is they don't want him to run.
I mean, he's a Democrat. None of that stuff matters. I mean, because you got a choice. You vote for a corrupt, Democrat, or you have to vote for a MAGA, or you help the MAGA guy. So we're going to vote for that Democrat. He's fine. Don't worry about it.
There are 7 Democrat is running for Allegheny County executive. So
okay.
John Weinstein is one of them, and then so is Sarah Innamorato. So you have the progressive and the traditional Democrat, and the fact that this come out
is he considered a progressive, or is he more?
He's more traditional Democrat.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, so
it's not the MAGA people going after him.
No, I think it's a progressive left going after him.
It's the flip side of that coin.
Another thing is, when this bank fell out at the Silicon Valley Bank, just so you know, Facebook announced this morning they're going to lay off 10,000 more workers. And Apple is having a hiring freeze and eventually going to, I think who is Apple's CEO? He's going to cut his salary by 40%. So
I don't know who's CEO now.
This is going to have a really wide impact for the high tech, with the Silicon Valley Bank going out of business.
Yep.
Tim Cook.
Oh, right. Tim Cook.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so he's gonna cut his own salary by 40%. So, I give him and they are pulling out of China for manufacturing. So, both House voted to declassify all the COVID-19 documents, and that's Republican and Democrat. And funny that Joe Biden did not say he's going to sign that bill. But according to what I understand, if he doesn't now sign the bill, he doesn't veto it, in 10 days it will become the bill. They will have to declassify everything anyway.
Well, they apparently had a deadline. The FBI and the State Department were supposed to produce the documents, and they missed it. They said that they will. And a spokesperson for the State Department told the Epoch Times, President Biden has directed every element of our intelligence community to put the effort and resources behind getting to the bottom of the origins of COVID-19. We will continue to use every tool to figure out what happened here. And if we gain further insight, the president has directed the administration to share that with Congress and the American people.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So they're behind it now.
Yeah, and then also the recent news is the U.S. government agency may have been double billed for projects in Wuhan, China, record indicates. They're investigating now. There's 50,000 documents. They double bill our department. We paid it out to Wuhan in the amount of millions of dollars.
Well, I mean, I have to say, regardless of what they conclude on the origins, I hope that's just the beginning. So I think that why is it now 2023, and that's the first time we're taking seriously investigating the origins of this thing that affected the entire world. That's unacceptable. This should have been investigated long ago.
Because we were investigating Trump and January 6th.
Right. And we need, the American people deserve to have honest information presented to them to say, did we do the right thing? So, look at the economic harm, look at the harm that we've had, into our public health, addiction, psychological, everything. And now everything that we know about this virus in hindsight, did we do the right thing? I think the answer is a clear no.
Fauci was protected, first of all. Fauci was protected by the Democratic bureaucracy, okay?
Right.
Nobody wanted anybody to know because the focus was on Trump. The whole purpose of the entire government at the time is take down Trump.
Absolutely.
And so they did not care about anything that harmed our country.
Again, throw the hell with the American people.
Right.
We're going to win this next election. That's really what happened. That's why every Democrat governor had hard lockdowns, and it was only the Republicans that questioned it. And they didn't just go blindly against it. I mean, they looked into it. I mean, even DeSantis, Florida, hired his own, health secretary of health, and, they made decisions based on science. See, what happened... This is what frustrates me, is what happened here was not science. And it really frustrates me because you have people claiming that they're following science when they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what science is or how to use the scientific method. What they're following is some person who says, I know. This is like religion. Again, if you go back before the Reformation, the people did not have access to the Bible. The Christian church at the time, they told the people what God said. They told the people, this is what God wants you to do. And the people didn't question it. They went along with it. They're like, hey, we don't question that. We do what they tell us. There was an orthodoxy within the church. They controlled the message. And it wasn't until, Martin Luther with the thesis that created the Reformation. But what I'm saying is the same thing just happened with COVID. You had Fauci, the the Chinese scientist, the WHO. So you had the orthodoxy telling us what the science is, okay, their version of science, and then anyone that questioned it was a heretic. Everyone that questioned it was labeled a heretic. You don't listen to them. They're evil. They're trying to do harm. I mean, it's religion. There is no science in this at all.
It is a cover-up because China paid for it. Our government paid for it. And A lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people know or don't know, the NIH employee actually gets a royalty from these prescriptions and vaccines they develop. So I like to know how much money the NIH employee and Fauci received from the COVID-19 vaccine. That should be a public record. Another thing is, why is our government employee is allowed to receive royalty for vaccines?
That blows me away. Okay, if you're an engineer or a scientist employed by a company, you can put your name on a patent. If you patent something, your name goes on it. But all the rights, all the financial rights of that patent belong to your employer. So when the American people are paying these scientists and they're allowed to profit from the work that they do, profit personally, that's a conflict of interest. That blew me away when I heard that happened.
Well, here's another thing. We're paying these people. They're supposed to be looking out for the taxpayers.
That money, any royalties as a result of that work belongs to the American people, not that scientist.
They're not even, it's not even the scientists. So what they do, they use the taxpayers' money. First of all, they get paid by the taxpayers. Right. Then they use the taxpayer money to give to the pharmaceutical company to research vaccinations and have gain of function research and then try to develop vaccine against it. And they're receiving money for it. So how can we trust them to be objective?
Well, I agree.
Protect our interests.
I agree, but I don't know if you realize, though, what was just revealed to me is that the individual scientist, if scientist Joe works with a company to help them develop their vaccine, he gets royalties personally from the sales of that vaccine. He owns some of that intellectual property.
Okay, so that's what the problem is, because
that should never happen. That does not happen in the private industry.
No, and that should not happen because that make these people untrustworthy, make them unobjective. They're there to protect their interests, and the people they're paying them, the pharmaceutical,
I agree,
millions of dollars to help cover this up.
The job of the CDC and the FDA is to protect the American people from people like private industry who have a financial interest in doing something. So you can't corrupt our officials with that financial. Now, I can see them saying, well, in order for us to recruit and retain the best scientists, we have to have this policy. No, that's not an acceptable excuse.
No. Another thing is, if you look at everything that was misinformation in 2020, 2021, now it's all revealed as the truth. How many people lost their friends? How many people was labeled a conspiracy theorist? Right? All those things. The COVID-19 is lab-made. In 2020, that's impossible. 2023, yes, it is lab-made. The myocarditis, no, there's no such a thing there's no such a thing. COVID vaccine, you cannot get COVID or transmit COVID if you take this vaccination. That's completely untrue. And then the myocarditis that's on the warning label now in all the COVID-19 vaccine, and the stroke that just happened with Pfizer and the CDC now is investigating the latest booster that's causing stroke in people that's 65 years and older. But those are not being reported in the media. We're still talking about January 6th. We're still talking about things that really does not matter to people's actual health.
Okay. Well, I have to disagree on a couple. So I don't know that anyone ever said there's no such connection of myocarditis, because if you look up myocarditis,
yes.
The most common cause of myocarditis pre-COVID is a viral infection. And other vaccines have been known to cause myocarditis. So they never denied that it caused myocarditis. What they look at is they say the instance of myocarditis is very, very low, and the vaccine saves a bunch of lives, so it's safe to use. That's what they say. They didn't say there's no. In fact, myocarditis became a big issue in the young people when they started giving it to young people.
No, because prior to that, when it just started coming out, people say it's causing people with heart problems. They say it's untrue. I'm going to find you the article. Because they did say it's untrue.
Here's the mistake that people make, that I hear people making, okay? They'll say, the vaccine causes myocarditis. No. Okay? The vaccine can cause myocarditis. Okay? Those drugs that they advertise on
young people.
When they put a drug commercial on TV, at the end they read this very long list of side effects. Yes. And people make a joke like, why would you ever take something with all those side effects? Well, the truth is those side effects are very rare. 90% of any of the serious side effects are super rare. There is no such thing as a medical treatment or drug that doesn't have some kind of side effect. So, but if the instance of the side effect is very rare, then and the benefit of the treatment is high enough, it's still approved. That's one of the reasons why certain drugs require a prescription, so that the doctor can monitor you and make sure that you're not one of the people who's going to have these serious side effects. So if they just put it in a drugstore, people are taking it. They have no way of knowing. So, when you take it, like I'm on meds for gout. I have to go in every 6 months. I get blood tests. They ask me all the standard questions. And what they're looking for is to make sure that the med's working and it's not causing me any problems. I've been on it for decades. But the other thing is when the vaccines were first administered, they were administered to the older people, old and high-risk people.
Right.
They were monitoring the transmission of the virus within the nursing homes. After giving the initial vaccines to those older people, the spread of the virus plummeted. So the initial vaccine for that form of the virus, that variant, did, by all the data and all the evidence, stop transmission. It stopped infection. It stopped transmission. Okay? Very soon after that, Delta came along. And then the initial question was, is this even going to work on Delta? Had no idea. They discovered that people were still spreading it and people were still getting infected, but they believed that it was reducing the serious illness. And so that's what the vaccine became. It wasn't a lie. It was a change.
They completely discounted natural immunity.
Well, but that's another argument. Okay. Right. What I'm saying is this is where people get in trouble. They don't really understand science. If I tell you something in June and then I tell you something different in October, you say I lied. Well, I may have lied, or maybe something changed. Now, I don't believe that my criticism of the government throughout was they're not communicating well enough. They're giving really overly simplified, and actually they were selecting information based on what they wanted people to do. And I said that they were going to get themselves in trouble by doing that.
And they're not allowing debates. They're not allowing other opinions. They just automatically shut everything down because if you remember, they shut down all the medicines that could possibly help this viral infection. They say anything Trump said was bad. So they stop a lot of medicine that can potentially help people, but because Trump said it can help people, so it cannot be on the market.
If you go back and look at my old YouTube stuff, that's exactly what I was saying. That this is not about whether chloroquine works or not. It's all about Trump. The media was not reporting what the scientists were saying.
Well, I'll give you an example. I love Z-Pak. So anytime I get a flu, I will get a Z-Pak. And the doctor would say, well, it's a viral, it's a flu, Z-Pak's not going to help you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, but it does help me. I know my body, right? It helps me. So get me a Z-Pak.
Sure.
Sure enough, I take 2, I'm 50% better within 12 hours.
Right.
Okay. But that, even Z-Pak was being criticized and say you cannot take that. So the only solution is a vaccine. So I would love to know, maybe we need to do some research on this. How much money did NIH employee and NIH National Institute of Health and Fauci, how much money did they receive from
See-
the Pfizer, from Moderna, and J&J probably did not pay them. That's why they're off the market. I mean, that's a traditional virus, traditional injection.
Yep.
You put an adenovirus in somebody. I'd love to know, because that is just blows my mind that our government employee is receiving royalty from these vaccines.
Right. The whole reason we have an FDA and a check and balance like that is because when a company develops a treatment, if there's a market for it, there's a huge financial incentive for them to get it out there.
Right.
So their interest, no matter how pure their hearts are, you can't avoid the power of a financial, benefit, the motivation to make money. And that's why the government has to stay separate. And that whole idea of paying these scientists royalties is wrong. I mean, it's wrong.
They're scientists, but they're also government employees, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're government employees first.
They would be like
they're government employees first. Don't take the job.
Here's the thing. That would be like a public defender will get money from, I don't know, the plaintiff or the prosecutor's office, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's,
he has to have his only, an attorney's only interest has to be to his client. Absolutely.
Right.
And the same way, a president's only interest should be to the American people. And the same with the bureaucrats and everybody else. Everybody on the government payroll that we pay, they have to look out for us, our interests. That's all they have to be. That's it.
Okay.
And they're not doing it, by the way.
This is an article I found in the National Library of Medicine. It was published in January 22, 2005. So this is a figure 18 years ago. It says patient who took part in clinical trial at the U.S. National Institute of Health, NIH, had no idea that scientists at the institutes receive $8.9 million in royalty payment and might benefit financially for the use of their discoveries by pharmaceutical companies and device makers. Report from the Associated Press. The press agency has reported that 916 present and former NIH researchers receive annual royalty payment averaging from $9,700, but could receive as much as $150,000.
Nope. That money belongs to the American people. If any of those scientists worked for Pfizer and their efforts developed this, they don't make money off of it. All the financial rights go to the company. That's it. They can give the scientist bonus. They can incentivize them however they want. But that scientist does not own any intellectual property. He doesn't own any financial rights to the things he produces. That's true of scientists and engineers in the private sector, widespread.
Okay, now here's
in this case, the employer is the American people, and all that money belongs to the American people.
If you go help a research, shouldn't you be getting some kind of royalty too? If I'm going to go get a study and my using me as my body as experiment, shouldn't I be getting annual royalty if that vaccine gets developed? I mean, here's another article from the National Desk. Now
you had to take the vaccine though to get that.
Right. So recently, I took the polio vaccine. I should get some royalty for that.
Right.
Now, recently, there was a congressional hearing, and this question was directly questioned to Fauci. So apparently, Rand Paul had this clash back in September 14, 2022. So Rand Paul asked Fauci, it says, we've been asking you and you refuse to answer whether anybody on the vaccine committee gets royalty from the pharmaceutical company. I asked you last time, and what was your response? We don't have to tell you. This is what Fauci said. Paul said, when we get in charge, we're going to change your rules and you will have to divulge where you get your royalties from, what companies, and if anybody on the committee has a conflict of interest, we're going to learn about it. Now, this is before the Republican took over the Congress, okay?
I mean, when he said, I don't have to tell you, he told you. I mean, come on. If the answer was no, he would have said no.
Yeah, I'm going to post this article onto our Facebook. Over the period of time from 2010 to 2016, 27,000 royalty payment were paid to 18,000 NIH employees. We know that because you told us, but because we forced you to tell us through the Freedom of Information Act. Paul told Fauci during the June hearing, this is June 2022, that's before Republican took over the House, over 193 million was given to these 18,000 employees. Okay, so that was before the COVID vaccine. It would be so interesting. Now, I just watched a recent hearing on the subject. Fauci did not admit it. He took royalty, but then he said, "I donate it back." How much did you donate it back?
To who?
To who?
Who did he donate it to?
I believe it was $4 million. $4 million. Who did you donate it back to? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. So this. I'm so glad we got on this subject because this is something not too many people know about it. And I think more and more people needs to know about the fact that our government employee is getting royalty from the pharmaceutical company.
Well, thank you again, Sherry, for a great conversation.
These conversations getting more and more passionate and heated.
Yes.
But
we're starting to disagree.
Yes, we're having a lot of fun, and then we hope you are too. We are starting to disagree. That's not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good one.